Your first speaker is, and you may think, oh, Dean, he is full of hyperbole, and you're not wrong, but Dan Dunlop is one of my favorite people in my life.
It's mutual, brother.
Hands down. Not in the industry of healthcare, which is where we met. Like, sincerely one of my favorite people. So when I say, like, we finally got Dan to come, like, it is a true feeling for me to be able to say that. He is, I mean, literally, he's that guy that now is at that point of, like, collecting lifetime achievement awards in the healthcare marketing industry and things like that. But, you know, he's just an incredible heart. And I saw him give, you know, that version or this presentation a little more than a year ago. And the first thing I thought is, this should not just be trapped within an industry conference. This is something other people need to see. And I think you'll feel the heart and the transparency and the sincerity in it. So I'm going to finally shut up and bring on my dear friend Dean.
Pleasure of knowing Dean for a long time, and he tells the story correctly. He came to me a year ago and said, man, I love that presentation. I said, well, I'm retiring it. Didn't I? Yeah. And, but I mean, how could I not do this? And talking about love, what a great thing. You know, I'm at that point in my life and my career where I can pretty much talk about whatever I want. And it used to be when you speak at conferences, you know, you send in those speaker submissions and they go through them and make decisions about, you know, who are they going to select. And so you pick a topic you think they're really going to go for, you know, where's hot. I don't do that anymore. I pick a topic that I want to talk about and that I think is important and that I want to share. And if they take me, they take me. If not, I go somewhere else. And that's okay. So I'm thrilled to be here with all of you today. Thank you for being here. What a great looking group. It's good to have a packed room today. I had no idea what to expect. I've heard about this gathering for years. So I'm glad to be here. But what about love? This is my wife, Scotty, and me, a picture of love. This is a love sign, and you guys see these everywhere, you know. This one's at the base of the mountain at Wintergreen, which is about 2 hours from here where I live. I just moved there permanently about 2 months ago, and I see it every day when I drive up the mountain. I love it. It just reminds me, like it refocuses me on what's important. Because, you know, I am like the last person you should choose to talk about love, especially since I want to bring love to the workplace, to our cultures, within our organizations. And I'm like the quintessential, hard-driving, pain in the ass, workaholic, expect everybody to work as hard as I do, you know, just unforgiving. So this is an evolution for me as a professional and as a grown-up and as a human being to realize that doesn't work. It might have worked once, but it doesn't work anymore. And look who else celebrates love. I grabbed that off Facebook this summer, you know, to make sure I could put it in this presentation. So there's Dean and his family. But the great thing about love, and my mantra is really that to be successful, we need to bring elements of love into the workplace, into our business cultures. And the cool thing about love is we all know how to do it. You know, it's a concept most of us understand. Some may not, and you know, we won't put them in charge of this, but most of us understand love. I used to do a talk on marketing as community building. And my thesis was, if as a marketer you understood, or just as a business person, if you understood that your job every day when you come to work is to build community, think of how that would change the way you affect things. You know, like marketers like me, we spew crap at consumers, and we hope it sticks. What if I came at that, though, as a community builder? I would stop spewing, and I would be more about hugging and embracing and bringing people together and pointing out commonalities that we share, you know, points of interest. It's something we understand how to do, and we understand love. We understand how to be kind and nurturing. And the worst thing of all, and I'll take it from my experience as a human being, is I would be so intense at work, and I still get so intense at work, but I would be so intense at work that I would bring that home. So I would bring that sense of intensity. Instead of even having the loving Dan at home, I would have that intense, hard-driving, impatient Dan with my wife and my daughter. And luckily I'm still married, and I think I'm changing, I'm evolving, but you don't want that. And what we want is the opposite. We want to bring that loving, kind, nurturing spirit to the workplace because it will have profound impact. Another reason I'm talking about love is because I had a stroke 2 years ago. I was in my office in Durham, North Carolina, lost feeling in my left arm, took my right arm and called an Uber and went to Duke Medical Center. And luckily, my symptoms were gone within like 15 minutes, and I was fine. But it was a real stroke, and it was a eye-opening experience. It reminded me of my mortality, which, we all think we're immortal. So that really was a jarring experience. And that's another reason I feel like, the hell with it, I'm going to talk about love, I'm going to do what's important. This Monday in the Wall Street Journal, incredible timing, an article based on a study that said U.S. employees are unhappier than ever, more unhappy than they were during the pandemic. And this is after giving them flex schedules, letting them work from home, giving them bonuses, increasing their benefits. This is what I'm trying to address. I work in the healthcare industry, and people are leaving that industry in droves right now. Nurses are saying, you know what, forget it. But it's not just nurses, it's technicians, it's doctors, it's everybody. They're miserable. And so I got on this kick because I started looking at that industry and saying, how am I going to help them? What can we do? And I think creating a more loving, nurturing culture is a huge part of what we can do. And believe me, in healthcare, there's nothing loving and nurturing about those environments. I mean, it's hard enough to get healthcare people to treat patients in a loving, kind, nurturing way. Honestly, I mean, you've been patients, you are patients. You go to your doctor's office, what's that experience like? When you go, mine, I go in, and my primary care doctor is like this with her back to me, and she's typing on the EMR. I barely feel like I have her attention, not to mention her compassion and care. And when we're in front of a doctor, we're going through something important to us, something bad that we're dealing with probably most of the time. It's very rare that it's a wonderful experience like having a baby. Most of the time we're struggling. And we want people who will be empathetic and compassionate. So it's not enough to say, oh, work a flex schedule, or we're going to pay you more. They don't care. They're going to leave. And there's this gap right now. My wife and I were talking about this last night at dinner, that there's this gap. There's people like me who came up with this hard-edged approach. I expect everyone to work as hard as me. And, damn it, you're going to do it. And I'm looking for those kind of employees. And there are the people who are coming up today into the workforce, and what's their approach? What do they want? Yeah, they want work-life balance. They don't want what I wanted. Back in my day when I was coming up, I was like, I'm going to work harder than anybody else to get ahead. That's not the case anymore. I don't care what industry you're working in. So let's differentiate ourselves by creating a nurturing, loving, kind workplace. So these are some of the issues I've been addressing through this talk and through my Language of Love tour that I've been doing around the United States. And one of the challenges we have in the healthcare industry, but also in the business world in general, is American business culture grew out of the language of war and warfare. I mean, if you don't believe it, start thinking about the language we use. Strategy, tactics, campaigns. I am in the business, I own a marketing firm, an ad agency. We create campaigns. For every campaign we do, we have a war room. Or, we used to. We're trying to be much better about this now. But we'd have a war room where we'd set it up and dedicate it to that effort. During the whole pandemic, they had incident command centers at every hospital. And not only is this language so problematic in so many ways, but it's the language of conflict. And at least in my business in healthcare, my gosh, we shouldn't be in a conflict business. You know, if Caroline works at Duke and I work at UNC and we're right across the street from each other, we shouldn't be enemies. We should be collaborating. And collaboration takes a whole different language than this. So part of it is changing the language we use when we're talking about this. Does this make sense to you? Like, have I gone off into the deep end? Rein me in. Did any of you read Sun Tzu's The Art of War? Yeah, I did. I thought I was cool, you know. I didn't realize I was an idiot. I stole this from a blog, this quote, but I just thought he hits the topic better than I ever could. He said, as communicators, we're tasked with helping our clients create holistic, thoughtful, and relevant plans that are meaningful to audiences and that will sustain organizations. We want our plans, reports, and language to be sturdy, humane, and purposeful. And yet we're trained in a language steeped in a few thousand years of military escapades, colonialism, and subordination. I mean, well said. I love it. And by the way, if anyone wants copies of this presentation, it is yours to have. So in my business, in healthcare, people have not figured this out. But it's wild that you go to some place like Chipotle, right? Founded on a principle of love. This one, I hope this will play. What do I do to make it play?
So your seat good? Get the mirrors all adjusted, you can see everything okay? Just stay off the freeways, all right? I don't want you going out on those yet. Just leave your phone in your purse, I don't want you texting. Okay. There you go. Be careful.
Thanks, Dad.
Tommy, but not while you're driving. We knew this day was coming. That's why we bought a Subaru.
I mean, isn't that powerful? A car company, they sell cars. They're not even dealing with like nurses having to deal with people's lives and you know, and being nurturing and caring. This is a car company. They're selling you sheet metal. But they can embrace love. Really powerful. It's probably no coincidence that I've been a Jeep driver for 20 years and I just bought a Subaru. And my wife bought a Subaru too, so we have two Subarus now. Unbelievable. Southwest Airlines, you all have flown Southwest, right? It's not perfect, but man, they ride that love theme to the max, and they have forever. The little hearts on the back of the chairs or the seats and everything. Unbelievable. An airline, again, it's sheet metal. And Starbucks pushing love. And Starbucks, this makes sense to me. I'm a Starbucks fan, I have to admit.
Some say the world has never been more divided, more self-centered, more uncaring, that we've never been more disconnected. But through our windows, we're able to see so much good every day. And it's clear that a little kindness is never really little.
People get caught up in the word love. And especially in American culture, we're so hands-off. We don't hug. Dean and I hug, but most people don't hug. You know, it's about kindness. It's about, if that makes it easier for you to understand, it's about kindness. It's about nurturing. You know, it's about compassion, empathy. Those are the things that we need to bring to the workplace if we want our employees to stay and if we want to attract more employees. It's about celebrating the people around us, you know, celebrating their victory. You know, in the war metaphor, you're competing even with your colleagues, right? You know, it's who can get a leg up on the corporate ladder. But in a more compassionate, caring, collaborative thing, it's about team. And it's about celebrating your teammates' accomplishments. That's very different, and that's a very different culture. So when I do this as a healthcare talk, you know, why can't healthcare organizations do this if Subaru can do it? If Southwest Airlines can do it? if Chipotle can do it. So why add love to your brand lexicon? And why add that language of love? There's so many reasons. You guys know them all. One of the things I will point out is that the language of war is an incredibly masculine thing. So it's exclusive in that way. And it excludes women. And that's not a good thing in any workplace, as far as I'm concerned. So I talk to healthcare organizations about adopting this language of love, and some are. And I'm going to point out the problems with this too, because there are challenges. It's easy to say, oh, we're going to be loving and kind and all this. But you got to do it. You know, you can't just say it. It's like any good branding. You've got to live the brand every day. And if you don't live the brand, consumers or your employees call you on the BS because they see it like that. They're looking for it. They're like hawks. Well, HCA Healthcare, which has some hospitals in this region, came out with this campaign. This was in airports all over the country. These are big signs. And I actually took this just with my iPhone. When love is your operating principle, it shows. We show up. I love that they're talking about this. I would love that they were talking about it in terms of their employees, not in terms of the consumer, you know. Because, man, people hate working for HCA. This is a problem. And what happens when their employees see this in the airport? They call BS on it, right? And that does more damage than good. So the first thing they need to do is fix their problem internally and show some love to their people. And then go forward with this great campaign, which I love. When you understand the healing power of kindness, it shows. I love it. Great consumer campaign, horrible for your internal morale. A friend of mine was a CEO at a hospital in Reno, Nevada. Did you guys know how picky people are in Nevada about how you say Nevada versus Nevada? First time I ever did a talk in that state, I almost got run out of town. It was like, it's crazy. But a friend of mine, his name was Tony Slonim, a doctor. He was CEO of Renown Health System in Reno. This was a sculpture at Burning Man. Is that the name of the festival? At Burning Man, and he paid to have the artist move it to the front lawn of his hospital during the pandemic. And I will tell you, his focus was his employees. People weren't coming to the hospital. This was during the pandemic. They were staying as far away from the hospital as possible. Tony's one of those guys who walks the halls, you know, and he wants to meet the employees. He wants to hear from them, share with them. He wrote a blog for them every week. He had new material, whether it was on video or written material, just sharing with his employees. Because most employees work for an organization, they have no idea what the CEO is thinking about. They have no clue. Sharing is part of some people's language of love, right? Sharing information. So Tony did it. It's remarkable. This was an honest representation of who this organization was, straight from their leadership down. So really well done. I love it. And this was a quote from Tony. We care for each other. We love, we heal, we connect, we serve, we give back. We invest in our people and our communities, and we provide opportunities for growth. You know, so many, he says, we invest in our people. I go into so many organizations and I do what's called a brand assessment or a marketing assessment where I look at them. And one of the first things I look at is their mission, vision, and values. It's amazing to me how many people have their values articulated in writing and there's no mention of their employees. Shouldn't your people be one of your values? It's just stunning to me. People bring me in and they're like tanking. Their organization's going down the tubes. And I'm like, where are your people? Yeah, you have problems. I get it. And let me show you what we need to do. Vidant Health was one of the first organizations I ever worked for where they started talking about love, and I was like, you are crazy. This was maybe 10 years ago. I just couldn't believe they were talking about making love as part of their brand lexicon, and they worked from the inside out. I mean, they're the kind of organization that has, you know, yoga classes and they do all this really cool stuff for employees. It's just incredible. They have a morning meditation for employees that they do online that you can sign on and do. Really great. But Julie was one of my mentors when it comes to love. Alina Health, another one, willing to talk about love. We talk about love a lot. I'm sorry, that's an unusual CEO for a billion-dollar corporation who's talking about love. So during the pandemic, and you guys saw this because you all lived through it, healthcare organizations, did you see these signs they would put out there? What a load of crap. You could buy these on Amazon. And I would drive by the ones in my town. I lived in Durham, North Carolina, so there's hospitals all over the place. The letters would be falling over, and my job, much like Dean's, is to listen to what people are saying online. And I would read the posts by nurses and other healthcare workers about how they're being treated during the pandemic from leadership at the hospitals, and they saw this as an affront to them. It was offensive. They felt literally, they said this isn't me, they said that hospitals are using this to gain favor with the community, to gain goodwill for the community, while treating their staff poorly and not giving them the tools they needed to deal with the pandemic, which was proper PPE and all the different things. No. Well, we're getting there. Yeah, archaeologists in the future finding what passed as compensation for being worked to death. It's a nurse. Yeah, in the healthcare industry, somebody started this thing that pizza is what makes employees happy. And I love pizza, but I'm sorry, it has been a major failure. So what we do is, we work with organizations to celebrate their people in a genuine way. First, we help them fix what's wrong internally. Because otherwise, again, they're calling BS on whatever you're doing. Once we get them fixed, we do campaigns like this. And this is an internal campaign. This is not external. These are those pull-up banners, that go all over the health system, and they're posters on the wall. But they're celebrating real people that we photographed. They're genuine. And it's only after people feel good about what the health system is doing. And the greatest compliment we can have, this is this gentleman's son posing with his dad's poster. And then he posted it on Facebook. You can't get better marketing than that. To me, that says this is working. I warmed my heart when I saw that. Here's another one we did, probably for the most challenged organization I've ever worked with. They had about 500 people at the time they hired us. And we went in, we spent months trying to figure out the problems with employee morale. But to their credit, they were the best organization I've ever worked with for listening and taking action. So they had me at the end of the study, they had me stand up in front of their staff on a video conference and say, here are the 27 things we found wrong with your organization that we need to address immediately. And then their CEO got up and said, and here's what we're doing. Here are the first 7 we're taking on immediately. And here's what we're doing with the next 15, and so on. Unbelievable. And then, about a year later, we launched this campaign. Again, celebrating their employees, their integrity, their commitment. This is the organization that had no people in their values. No people mentioned. And that's all they are, is a people organization. So takeaways, I just would tell you, organizational culture, which is what we're talking about, is key to recruitment and retention. If you've got a recruitment and retention challenge in any organization, in any industry, it is rarely about money. It's rarely about benefits. It's about your brand, and your brand is inherently impacted by your organizational culture. Your culture has to be authentic. You just can't fake this stuff. You can't all of a sudden say, we're a loving organization. Yay. And the truth is, language can be dehumanizing and exclusive. You can leave out certain segments of the population. People, if any of you ever gotten a doctorate or gone to a PhD program, Dean, you did. Once you're in a PhD program, they speak their own language. And that's not because they're so smart. It's because they like the fact that they're exclusive. You know, we speak a language. I did my doctoral work in political theory, and oh my God, you go to parties, and it was like the first year I had to learn what they were talking about. I couldn't even decipher the language. And love and kindness will never go out of style. You know? So love your coworkers. Don't love them too much.
That's a different presentation.
Yeah, you get in trouble. That concludes my presentation. Thank you. Brother? Love you, brother.